Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. How you doing today? We are with the wonderful, the legendary Anna Kelly. How you doing, Anna?
I'm doing great, Michael. I'm here at the beach and enjoying just the breeze and the water and the birds, and it's truly my happy place. So I'm very good today.
That is awesome. And let's just give a shout out to your oldest son. He is now a high school graduate. Congratulations.
Unbelievable. It's been a very emotional, crazy week, going through all of that and realizing that in a month and a half, 2 months, my son will be an adult. He's the one that got me started really in real estate and that on that. He's my why, right? And
Yeah.
then three more came after him that are all kind of my why. But to realize, it is incredible that 18 years ago we thought if I could just be home with my baby and get started in real estate. And now, everything we've done it for, we're able to pay for his school and help him get his start in real estate. And it's been an amazing, amazing journey.
Yeah, I hope people really hear that, right? You had your why as you're holding a little one 18 years ago, roughly, and you've done the work, right? You stayed engaged, you kept at it. It wasn't start and stop, and you just kept moving forward through bad days and good days, and I just really realized, I just really hoped people would understand that it takes time. It's not microwave, right? It's not instant.
Uh, and if I wish someone had really told me that when I got started too, right? I thought it would be no time. I had done a couple of small deals, but before he was born,
Yeah,
but really was like, okay, I want to do this. And I thought, hey, everything on TV makes it look like a year I'm retired, right? And
yeah,
it took a long time, but it
yeah.
was all worth it. All the bumps, all the bruises, the learning experiences, the economic crash of 2008 and 2009, every bit of it, I look back and I say, it was all worth it for sure. You just
That
got
is
to stick to it.
Yeah, that is awesome. Well, I thought what we'd do in this first episode is the great thing about all of my experts all week is they're still in the business. It's not like you're just, well, you actually are on the beach. I was going to say you're not sitting on the beach doing anything, but you're actually at the beach, one of your many, your happy place. So I just thought we'd talk about what's going on in your business, right? You just kind of put the finishing touches on a creative apartment deal. And I thought we should talk about that and just, when there's a will, there's a way. So I thought we'd just kind of paint that vision.
Absolutely. At some point in your real estate investing career, you're going to run out of money or you're going to have money that you're not willing to spend for whatever reason, right? And
Mhm.
right about the time that you and I started talking, and I think you had done an interview or so of me as I was getting ready to retire,
Mhm.
I knew that I had enough cash saved up that would meet our needs for a year, and a little bit to invest. And then I knew my cash flow would, take care of our needs, but I wanted to keep growing. I didn't want to just retire and go, I'm done. I'm never buying anything again. Right. So I
Yeah.
had equity in my home, and I decided before I give my notice at my job, I need to close a home equity loan. It was 100% LTV home equity loan,
Nice.
4% interest, and I'll have 100 grand to have sitting in the bank so that if a deal comes up, I've got enough for a down payment on a deal or two. Right.
Yep.
So literally closed on the home equity loan, gave notice for my job, and a week or two later, I had an off-market deal fall in my lap. It was a 10-unit apartment building that I had wanted and looked at and dreamed about and mailed multiple times to try to take down over the last few years. And it was an estate, and they came to me first before listing it
Nice.
and said, we want $700,000 for this 10-unit building. And at the time, 700,000 was the largest thing that I would have purchased.
Mm.
And so I'm like, okay, I need 140,000 down with 20%. And I need, I'm going to have reserves for all of my I had 70 units at that time. So I needed to have 6 months reserves cash to remain bankable, especially because I was leaving a job. Right.
Yep.
And that was my biggest fear, is that if I leave my job, banks aren't going to want to lend to me anymore because I don't have that, what they consider stable income. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I don't want to use my reserves because then they're going to say no to the deal. So in order to buy it, I really needed to convince the seller to hold 10% so that I could put 70,000 down from my equity loan, have the bank do 80 and have her hold 10. And then my closing costs would be covered by my own money. And she was kind of reluctant to do that. It was an estate.
Sure.
So the woman who I had mailed to and asked to buy our property multiple times had passed away. Right.
Yeah.
And so her daughter was now the executor of the estate. And she really didn't want to hold any money because they wanted to finish the estate. She had siblings, they needed to wrap it up. But she really also wanted to get the deal done. And she wanted it to stay local with a local investor who would take care of her tenants. And
Nice.
so, I told her that we would definitely do that. And thankfully, because it was a referral, she trusted me, right? And so she agreed to hold 10%. So she did a $70,000 second mortgage with a 2-year balloon. And we can talk about that. But essentially, that means I had 2 years to pay her off.
Yeah.
And I think we did this one at 5% interest, interest only payments.
Sure.
So Michael, by doing this, I was allowed to go in 100% leveraged. I don't necessarily recommend that on every deal. There's risk involved in that. But knowing what I was doing and knowing that I had a lot of upside in the building, which is key when you're doing creative financing, I knew that this was a wise move. So in all 10 units, the rents were about $200 to $250 below what they should be, because this older landlord never raised rents on our tenants in years and years and years. So I knew that I could increase the rents, fix up the property a little bit, and increase the value substantially, so that in 2 years I could refi and I could pay off the seller and pay off that seller second. So we hit 2 years exactly a week ago, and I was able to hand her a check for her $70,000.
Awesome.
She made interest on me for 2 years until then. And it was truly a win-win. She was so thankful. She gave me a huge hug, after I paid her off, and it was a great deal.
Oh, that's awesome. So let's just walk people through it, because I've done those 10% seller carrybacks several times. They're very helpful, right?
Yes.
Especially as you're kind of trying to manage your cash and still grow. I think that's a wonderful strategy. So, okay. So the deal's brought to you, it's off market, referral from probably an agent or someone. You have a conversation, you walk the units. Your first thought was, hey, I need 140 grand, and then 6 months. That's a lot. That would kind of stretch us, too much risk. Then you go, hey, the only way this deal gets done is I need the seller to take back 10%. So how does that conversation happen? Do you relay that to the person that's the referral? Do you set up a meeting and you have coffee with the trustor? How did that all happen?
Yeah, so these deals, I've done several deals like this too, and they all kind of have, their own nuance to how they come about. But in this case, her attorney for the estate is the one that referred her to.
Got it.
Just bought that 73-unit apartment building, the first big one that I did. I had just bought that from him. So he knew of me, and then he did a big deal with me, and he referred her to call me. Perfect. So she called me, and that was, so nice that he referred her to me.
Yeah.
And she called me and said, I want $700,000 for the building. It's 10 units. And I said, let's meet there. So I knew her price.
Okay.
I ran my numbers, and I knew all the different ways that I could create an offer, a cash deal, 100% seller financing. I could go to a bank and I could put 20% down, but I didn't want to, right? And that's the other key. And then the third option was, let's try to work something down where I can save a little of my cash and kind of spread it across multiple deals. And so I always try to run the numbers, know your comps for what they sell for, know your comps for what they rent for, be prepared and already have your offers ready to go, so that when you do meet with the seller, you can try to get, the ink done on the contract there in person, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I ran all my numbers and I knew what it would look like. And I knew exactly, if she said, no, I want 6% interest, or I want this much down, or whatever, I had some different scenarios that I knew going in. I'm not going to go, well, let me go back to my spreadsheet and figure out if I can make that work. I already knew what I could do and how I could tweak the deal. And so we walked through the units, and I said, I'm ready to buy it. This is what I'd like to propose. And we did the deal at the kitchen counter of one of the vacant units they were remodeling. Wow. She signed the contract that day, and we were off to the races.
That is awesome. So I understand why 2 years was important to the seller, right? She wanted to kind of wash her hands. That was probably the last 70K from the estate. But 2 years, that's a tight window. I mean, 2 years goes by a lot faster than most people think.
It does. And that's a really good point, Michael. I always try to start out with 10 years.
Yes.
If I can get a seller finance deal for 10 years. I got a lot of time. And here's the thing that people don't realize. I love interest only. I'm willing to pay a seller interest only for the first 5 years. when you're on an amortizing loan, you're almost paying down no principal. It's almost all interest anyway, right?
Yep.
But an interest only payment is significantly less than a fully amortizing payment, even at a 1% or 2% lower interest rate. So I can juice my cash flow while I have the seller financing by doing an interest only deal.
Yep.
So I started out, I think, with 10, I always do. And then if they say no, 10's too long, then I'll say, how about 5, right?
Yep.
Or 7. And, this is just too long. It's an estate. We have to settle the estate. I said, okay, I understand. She wanted a year.
Ooh.
And I said, here's the deal with where we are in the economy. And again, this was 2019. We had seen some teetering with rates and, economic numbers at the end of 2018, early 2019. I said, we could be heading into a recession. And a year is just not long enough for me to come in with staggered leases that don't all expire right away to improve the property, raise the value to the point that I can refinance and pay you off. So I need you to give me at least 2. And if I can do it sooner, I'll try. But if we're both okay with 2, let's do it. And that's what we decided on.
That is awesome. All right. So it obviously great negotiation. It ended well. Now let's walk them through that 2-year journey. I mean, how long did it take to remodel the 10, or how long did it take you to kind of, did all the tenants change? Just give us a feel for what it was like being a landlord in a 10-unit building, value add 10-unit building.
Sure. So, I have a lot of properties right around this property. So I knew the market like the back of my hand. It is my market, right? So that made it a little bit easier. And because I'm in a somewhat smaller market, I really have more units in this area than any other investor.
Nice.
Other than maybe, a couple large apartment complexes a little closer to the Capitol building. And so I'm kind of setting the tone for the rents, because if I'm renting a bunch of units, I usually have a few units out at one time.
Yeah.
I can kind of set the pace and then they kind of follow. And some people try to lead mine as well, and that's fine. I'll go right along with it. But I knew very well that I had significant upside. And I knew that if I try to turn them all at once, I'd have some vacancy for a while. So that's never a wise thing to do, with few exceptions, right? And so I planned that as leases renewed, I would try to remodel a few of the units right away and get immediately market rents or a little bit higher. But I didn't want to kick out tenants that had been there a very long time and had been very good tenants. There are landlords that do that.
Oh, yeah.
But for me, Michael, this is a people business. And if you stop caring about people just for the dollars, you're just not being a good human, right?
Yeah, totally agree.
Is it smart and wise financially? Yes, but there's this balance. So I didn't want to kick out these people who had been their home for years and years. But I needed to get them to understand that they've been well below market. I can't allow that any longer. She didn't have a mortgage and I do, right? Yeah. And I'm going to have to slowly start raising their rent. So I factored that into my 2-year, plan for remodeling the building and getting it to a new value. So I still have 3 of the 10 tenants that were there 2 years ago in the building. I've raised their rents over a 2-year period. Probably halfway to market, but the others I'm getting significantly more than what I estimated on all of them, because I'm also conservative when I'm doing my numbers. I don't just go, oh, it could be the top. I'm like, here's where I think it will be, but I'm going to be a little conservative and make sure the numbers still work. And bottom line, by raising the rents on the 3 tenants, redoing the other 7 units, not significantly. These were like a very light value add: paint, vinyl plank flooring, few countertops, a few appliances, very, very light lift, because they were in pretty good condition. They were just a little dated. The building is now worth about $1.2 million. So $500,000 increase on 10 units in 2 years is pretty good. Yeah. So what happened was, because I did that home equity loan, Michael, I sold my house to buy a new one last year. So I paid off my $100,000 home equity loan that was in the building and the rehab, et cetera. Then I paid her off. So now I owe about $500,000, a little more, on a $1.2 million building. And so I can go in now and get a second mortgage on it, refinance it, and take that extra money and use it to buy about $2 or $3 million more of property.
Oh, so that's darn.
That's the power of seller financing, right? It can happen very, very quickly. You just have to get creative. And how can I get the deal done knowing that I have significant upside, and what's going to make the most sense.
So now you're looking at this $1.2 million building and you're going, how can I wring out some of the equity? So you could refi
Absolutely.
it. You could get a second. You could get an equity line on it with some banks. That's kind of where you're at right now, as you're evaluating what's the best way to do it.
Exactly. I've been so busy. And here's the thing too, with life balance, right? You can't do everything that's in your mind. You know, you want to get it done, but one thing at a time. I've bought a few, I have a kid graduating, I'm traveling. So I'm like, okay, now I'm going to have a downtime for this week. And as I travel cross country, I'm going to start making some calls to the bank and go, let's get an appraiser out there. And the first thing I'm going to do is go back to the lender that has the first, because it's very rare on commercial properties to find a lender that's willing to be in second position behind another lender that's in first.
Agreed.
I don't want to refi the loan because I'm in at a great rate. So what happened, and this is just another bit of this creativity and deals life-changing things over time, is my rate at the time, I think, was close to 5 when I bought it, right?
Yeah.
And rates have come down substantially. So during the pandemic, I went back and I said, listen, I want to recast my rate. Your rates are below 4 now. I will commit that I won't ever ask to go into forbearance. I'll continue to make my payments, but I want you to cut my rate. So they already dropped my rate. I think it's at 3.99, which is still pretty good.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep the first and I'm going to go back to the same bank and say, will you give me a second? You know, I've created an extra 700,000 in equity. Give me 5 and I'll use it to go buy more property. And I'm pretty sure they're going to say yes.
There you go. Well, that is just an amazing story. It starts with, really starts with relationships, right? That's why the lawyer called you.
Yes.
Thinking creatively. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yes.
Then executing a process and, you know, being a person of your word, right? Not also to the tenants and to the lady with the 70K seconds. An amazing story. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And I can't reiterate enough the relationships, right? Because it's all about people aren't going to just come to you until they trust you. And it's hard to build trust with people that you don't know. But this attorney's now referred several other people to me. My title attorney is also an estate attorney. They've referred several deals to me that I've been able to do with seller financing and to help them out. So be a person of your word, integrity, and play the long game, right? Because these things didn't just come to me the first couple of years I was investing in real estate. It took a long time of being in the market before these off-market deals started really coming to me pretty frequently.
Very, very cool, Anna. That's an amazing story, folks. I think you need to listen to that a couple of times. Who wouldn't want a 10-unit building? Nothing down, right? Money was funded from other sources, executed, add $500,000 to your net worth, interest rate below 4%. Oh my God, there's just so many good things to talk about here. Thanks, Anna.
You're welcome.